Good morning, everybody. This is Stacy Turner. Welcome to our DMOpro Zoom. We're so happy that you're here, and I hope you all had a chance to tap into or tune into the PJ Regional this weekend. Such incredible training, and I saw some of you on there, and definitely in the Facebook group where we were posting pictures of our who was there. So we rented a couple of houses up in the mountains, and we were at one big house for everyone to come to watch the training. So, man, there's so much just good that comes out of connecting together as a team, different than, watching it. And what I found was we just had more engagement when we went away. So one of the things that really stood out to me, and I think her name was Jenny that spoke, and she was talking about obstacles. And when you face an obstacle in your business, like, what do you do? And I think a lot of times it shuts us down. Honestly, we're just like, well, that didn't work. And we just stopped doing what we were doing before. But she talked about, I think she used the words obstacle. You notice there's an obstacle, then you pivot, and then you make a shift. Remind me if I got that wrong. That's what I typed in. I was taking notes. So if she said something else, I know that there were 3 words, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So if I'm off, let me know. But you recognize there's an obstacle, and then you decide to make a pivot. Okay, so let's figure out what the solution is, and then you make a shift. So I really connected with that. I loved what she was talking about with the events and some of the obstacles that they have found, and what they come up with a plan to, fix that solution and find a solution to that. So I was just thinking about that in our business, and that comes up, I mean, in a lot in life, right? Like, especially parenting, where you think, okay, I've got this one child figured out, and then you have another one and you try to do the same thing with that child, and you're like, oh, they're not the same child. They don't react the same. They don't have the same, thought process. And so you have to pivot your parenting and make a shift and do something else that works for that child. And that's true for our team. That's true for, relationships in general, but also activity for sure. So she was talking specifically events, like obstacles that they came up with in events. And I thought, I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. And having done this business for 21 years, I mean, trust me, there's been plenty of obstacles, and I'm even facing those now. They're just different. And you think, oh, okay, I've fixed this obstacle and with this team member. And so, wait, why does this team member respond differently? Kind of like your kids, right? Or it's just, you have to be willing to be able to make these small adjustments over time, because principles stay the same, but how we do business changes, right? We had introduction to social media. We have to make a pivot and shift to incorporate that into our business, or we lose out on potential team and customers. So, it's a constant shifting. Honestly, it's a constant pivoting. But what happens when we come up against these obstacles? How do we handle that? And so I just thought of a couple in my own business that I wanted to share with you guys. And then I would love to hear from you. What's an obstacle that you guys had? And then what was that pivot for you? And how did you shift your activity afterwards? So when I very first started, we had cassette tapes. That's what we were passing out to everyone. And I had 2 or 3 of them. And I was very excited. I was having great conversations, and I was passing those out, and I would say, like, I only have a couple of those, so I need that back. I have somebody on Thursday that I need to give that to. And people were listening to them. So that was like, they were getting the information. But then when I would come back to them and I'd say, there were 2 issues. I didn't really know how to move the conversation to the point of sale. So I didn't know how to say, what did you think of the information? I'd love to help you get started. I wasn't confident in that side of it. And so I found I was passing out this information to a lot of people. I was having a lot of conversations, but then they were just kind of laying flat and nobody was ordering. So I'm sure you guys can relate to that, right? And so I remember thinking, something has to give. Like, this isn't effective. I can't have all of these conversations and then no one's placing an order. I'm not going to really help them until they get on Juice Plus. And so I talked to Sharon, and she was my sponsor. And I said, I'm not doing this right. Like, clearly this isn't how it's supposed to work. I should be getting some orders. So, why is it that I'm talking to all these people, but nothing's really coming to fruition? And, for new people, that's very common. You have to start conversations and get the information out there. Most people don't buy on the spot, not our type of product. Maybe others where we've kind of talked about this before, where there's a buyer's readiness scale to where it's a quick purchase. It doesn't have a long time commitment. It's a less expensive. That's the Amazon button. That's the Facebook ad type of things, right? Like, it's a one-time buy and it doesn't take a lot of brain power to understand it. We're not really on that side. I mean, sometimes we feel like that, like there's not a lot of brain power in understanding fruits and vegetables, but it's a paradigm shift from vitamins to whole food. It's from I'll just eat fruits and vegetables to the understanding I don't eat enough, and this would be an easy way to get it in. From, are vitamins effective to what's the research say about Juice Plus? From I've got $7 vitamins and I'm going to invest $80 in vitamins, so it's the buyer's readiness scale. We're more on this side where it takes more thought process for people. It's not always a quick purchase, but when we've said yes, we're thinking, why wouldn't they just say yes to this? Of course, like, buy it. Why? What's the holdup here? So when, expectations within that, and that's kind of where I was, I didn't know how to move that conversation forward. And so I just remember telling Sharon, if we're going to do this, I need to do it right. I'm not being effective. And she said, okay, let's do an event then. And so we brought those conversations I was having to somebody who had more confidence, that had more answers. And remember, I was 24, living in this very adult world, meaning I didn't hang out with people that were my own friends, age. Like, I was with people 10, 12 years older than me as a young officer's wife. And so I wasn't speaking to my peers as much age-wise. So I'm sure there was some hesitation. How does this young gal that's 24 know more about nutrition than, I do? Or what? Like, there was some hesitation there. I needed the confidence of her age, and she was the same age as them. Like, they were going to connect at a different level than I was. And so she brought the confidence into those conversations. And then we did start to see orders. And isn't that the way it works? We have a conversation, we connect them to a resource. That was the cassette tape. Then I didn't really know how to follow up super well with them. And then I kind of just like got the cassette tape back and then moved on to the next person. So that pivot for me had to be bringing them to do an event, or to an event for Sharon to share with them. And she gave them the order forms, and we talked about ordering, and we helped them fill those order forms out. And I started getting customers, and then I was excited about it, right? So how many times do our new team members, I just had a conversation with a new gal, and she said, I'm having conversations with people, but then, nothing's really happening. And I just don't know if maybe I'm just not good at this. So that's the obstacle. So when we're looking at an obstacle, let's start thinking, does somebody else have a solution to this already? Who's already figured this out? Can we tap into that? That's what a franchise is, right? Like, we talk about being a virtual franchise, not as much, we don't hear that wording with Juice Plus, but a franchise means there's already a system in place. So we shouldn't have to be recreating the wheel all the time. How do we tap into the systems that are working? And if those systems are shifting and pivoting, kind of on on a basis that's pretty regularly having to kind of shift, when we're not plugged into training, we're going to miss that. You're going to miss the other shifts that have taken place in this franchise that you just didn't even know about, you didn't think about. And when we get to that obstacle, we can really either go in our head, or we can start reaching out and thinking about something different. And I just want to encourage you guys, think about what are those obstacles. What if I had said, this just isn't working. I'm not very good at this. I don't have anybody ordering. I've talked to people, but they don't believe me. I'm younger than they are. People in my circle just don't need this nutrition. This doesn't make sense to them. I could have started saying all of those things and I would have missed out. But I had to pivot my conversations to where I started bringing them into an event. And that's where we saw, results. That's where we saw these orders come in. That built my confidence. And then I was like, okay, let's go. Right. So we want to make sure that we're doing that with our new team. What's the obstacle that they're coming up against? Some people walk into this with just the natural, or like I would say the skill set of like what they've done in life outside of Juice Plus to really help pull in those skills that they've learned, and they're able to really move forward quickly. Maybe they have really strong rapport already with people in their health journey. They have highly respected conversations and connections already, to where when they recommend something, somebody just says, okay, I'm going to do what you say to do. Most of the people in our lives are not that way, right? Most of the time they're going to ask questions, and we want to embrace those obstacles or those objections, because then we know what to address. But when we shy away from that, when we pull away from the obstacle and we start getting in our mind, well, I guess this doesn't work, that's really going to that's going to hold us back. And I'm not speaking to anyone other than myself today. Like, there's obstacles that still come up in my business, in my thought process, in my conversations, that I'm like, what do I do with this now? Do I back down? Do I just say, well, I guess this doesn't work for me? Or am I willing to pivot and seek information from others and move forward? So one that I really latched onto from Jenny this weekend is, she was talking about the Build a Cart cards. I don't know if you guys caught that, and what she does at events. And she said they have a card that they fill out, they pass out to each person, and it has all of the information that they would need on it to be able to build a cart for them. Okay, so then that has like the child's name, the child's birthday, what the child would want. It has the adult's name, it has their address, email, all of that information is on this card. And then, so they pass those out, and then to get them back, because that could be an obstacle, right? Like, you pass them out, but are you going to get them back? They do some sort of drawing where they give a little gift package away. And then that's how they get those cards back. And then they have that to be able to build out a cart and be able to send to them. So I've been doing a lot of sourdough events where these are cold market people to me now. We're close to 275 people that I've had at these classes I've been teaching. The last couple of classes I've done, I didn't know but anybody, or maybe one person in these class. So we're talking 12 cold market people. So when you're marketing to a cold market, meaning they don't know me, I hope that they like me by the end of the evening, that we've had fun together, but they don't know me, and they don't necessarily trust me. I'm giving really high value information to them in our talk, and I get great feedback on that, and that's getting better as I'm more confident with it. So hopefully they know my heart but they don't know me, right? Like, to make a purchasing decision, maybe to even give me their credit card. And so I'm finding, having all these great conversations and high interest, and I am passing out the order form. I am giving them the, like, let's go, let me help you with this. And then I'm losing out on a lot of conversations. So I thought, okay, how do I get their contact information into Project Broadcast so I can send them a series of information after they join in? So I was pretty excited about that. So I made a QR code and I had them scan that at the event. I was thinking, this is going to be the answer, right? I will instantly have I'll have at least their phone number, and it will automatically send that to them. It will be one less step I have to do. So I thought, this is going to be great. So that was kind of a pivot in my mind. Well, what ended up happening is we didn't have a great internet connection that night. I didn't pass out an order form, a sign-up sheet. So I was relying only on this cord. I know you guys, or sheet, you guys are looking at me like, Stacy, haven't you told yourself not to do that? But I thought this will be the answer. So they're all scanning it. And I said, did you scan this? So you've got the, Facebook group, and you've got the resources and the recipes and the links to the bread knife and all that. And they're like, yep, 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 I scanned it. Well, out of 13 people, I only got 7 people responding back. I don't have their information. I don't have their list. I didn't invite them. One person hosted, she invited all of those. Those are her friends. I don't have their information. So then I'm scrambling to try to find some of them on Facebook and like message or like, friend them, and trying to reconnect with the lady that hosted. Now I'm trying to catch up. Now, maybe if the internet had worked well, that would have worked, but it didn't, now. And the last event that we did, sourdough, that wouldn't have worked well because internet wasn't great either. So yeah, we're 2024 in New Mexico, is still not great internet, but I was like, dang it, I really hoped that would help. So when she talked about these build a cart cards, I was like, that's really brilliant. And one of the things on the card, Patty's holding it up right now. I can't get that boards link to work for me for some reason. Patty, if you could send us that file. It just keeps saying there was a problem, and it had some sort of problem. I don't know what I think it's through boards, but I don't know. So I was just like, that's a great pivot, right? Like I can learn from what somebody else did. And that was an issue they were having too. They weren't getting orders. And we don't want to just be spinning our wheels. I don't want to be that, talking and talking and not getting orders and not getting team. And so I was like, all right, that's a good one. I can do that. I've got these 5 events coming up in Alabama. I'm not going to rely just on that code again. I can give that code. That's an easy way to get them the information, but I need to have something else that I've got their information. And so I'm loving this idea of being able to build it out. And it says who invited you to the event. And I think that would be really helpful too when we are doing group events for other people or with other team members, kind of like we talked last month. The person who is the one that invited them, they're the ones that get the card, and they're the ones, it's their responsibility. So at the end, when all the team is divvying up the cards, dividing them up, who goes to what, you can have that conversation at that moment of like, well, I talked to them, 3 years ago about Juice Plus, but who invited them to the event? Who got them there? And whose name did they write down? If they wrote down the person who invited them, you have to honor that you didn't work to get them to the event, that somebody else did. That's just my opinion. The discussion can be made there versus nobody follows up with that person because it's awkward. Who did they belong to? And then they don't get the care that they need. We don't want to leave it at that, right? We want to have integrity. We want to be professional, and we want one team, one mission where we're working together. I think that's a really great way to help solve some of those issues that will come from events that are done as a group. And then you'll be more clear of that. So to have those cards, but I really appreciated having that resource now, and thinking that will be a good pivot for me to have those cards. So that's just one that I've had in my mind, where the obstacle was a lot of these are cold market. How do I continually follow up with them? Project Broadcast is a great way to be able to do that in a large quantity. And then the second part of that pivot with them of like, how do I get back in touch with them? These were ladies in a different town than I live in. I made a watch party event, set it up at somebody who's willing to host it for me. And I'm going to watch Dr. Valerie Miles' video. We'll watch that, and we're going to do a dinner event. And so because they were in Project Broadcast, that did make it very easy to invite them, right? I was able to one button, one message, send it to all of them. And then I'm going to be doing one at my house that, again, I was able to, I think there's 89 contacts that are in this group. Well, I think it would be more now, but I was able to one button invite all of them to come to this watch party at my house and, continue the conversation with them. So just tapping into different things that people have come up with and pivoting and adjusting and shifting. That's one example of like in actual activity, like how I'm going to change the activity that I'm doing. Sometimes it might be a mindset shift, so where does this pivot need to take place? Where's the obstacle coming up? Is the obstacle coming up in your mind? Do you find yourself thinking the same thoughts to where there's one that's just kind of rolling over in your head that you know is holding you back? Nobody will listen to me. If that's the messaging that you're telling yourself in your head, it's true. They're not going to listen to you because you're going to portray that you don't have to listen to me. And there's nothing what I'm saying is not going to bring enough value that you would want to listen to me. Like, you will portray that. It's a crazy thing. So does the pivot need to be, is the obstacle coming up in your mind? What's the pivot that needs to shift there? Is the obstacle coming up in skill set? I would like to do events, but I don't even know how to make a flyer. I don't know how to, I don't know. We'll just let you come up with, we've talked on skill sets often. What's the skill set that you need to learn to move forward? Where do you need to pivot so that's not an obstacle anymore? The obstacle stays an obstacle as long as you recognize or as long as you don't recognize it and you just leave it there. It will keep coming up again. An obstacle, maybe I've heard people say, well, I can't host an event at my house. I have kids. It's so crazy. That's what Jenny said. It was so much work to host them at her house that they had to pivot and find another place. I remember that. It was so hard when the kids were little. Like, if I'm there as when they were little, they were going to come to me. There was no way that I could keep them out of the room and let me present. They would have been, wanting me to hold them and crying that I wasn't paying attention to, like, there was no way I could do an event at my house if the kids were there. And I did a couple times, and we've got some funny stories of Colin getting in the goat pen. I hear him outside screaming his head off, and I was like, I can't ignore that scream. Like, hold on, let me go see what that is. And he had gotten in the goats, and he had one by the horns, and they were wrestling back and forth, and like, very distracting, right? Like, that's super hard. I did them anyway. We just moved through it, but it wasn't the most easy, smooth presentations. So that was an obstacle I had to find another way. So Jarrett would take the kids, and often he would take them and they would come back with like Burger King or Sonic. And I was just like, I don't want to know. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the bags. Like, what happens with dad stays with dad. Like, he took them so I could do the event. It's fine. I had to let it go. But like, there's always going to be some sort of little obstacle. So in the skill set, what's the obstacle that keeps coming up? What can you do to pivot and shift? And if you don't know, tap into a group, like ask in the DMO group, this is an obstacle that I'm having. What are some ways that you guys have found a way through that? You have upline sponsors, you have an NMD somewhere, even if you're not active with them, they owe it to you to give them your attention. So they're getting paid to give you their attention. Stop thinking that you can't go to your upline, or I don't have that great of a relationship. Go build that with them. I promise you, they want to work with you. They want to work with the workers. Somewhere, someone will work with you. What's that obstacle in the skill set that needs to be learned? What's the obstacle in the activity itself? Like I said, having an event presentation space. If you're not able to present, what do? We shifted and pivoted, and we found at that time it was a grocery store that had this small room that we could borrow for free, and we would do events at a grocery store. And people would come to it. What needs to shift in the activity? What's the obstacle, and how long are you going to sit that and let that be what keeps you from doing business and making money, and really helping people? And then marketing yourself. What's the obstacle that you're finding with that? You don't have enough people to talk to. You are not able to use social media. You say, like, that's for other people. There's no way I could learn that. What's the obstacle that you're finding? The obstacle could be, my house is a mess. My office is a mess. I don't have a system. I have a DMO planner, but I don't write anything in it. And I'm not really utilizing the tool of being able to track conversations. That's in my notes section today. Like, go back through my phone and really dig through the last 2 weeks. I've just been busy, thing that I've not been writing stuff down. It's in my head. It's swirling. It's creating chaos and sort of this panic. I know I'm dropping the ball with conversations because I can't have this many conversations and no system or way to keep up with them. Project Broadcast helps, but I want to see those names on paper. That encourages me to see that. So are you using your DMO planner or whatever system you have? Do you have a system? And if, in finding new people to connect with, what's the obstacle with that? And then what are you going to do to pivot and shift and find a solution with that? So I would love to hear from you guys. What time in your business was there an obstacle that you recognized? How did you pivot and shift? And what was the outcome of that? So remember that you're muted. So unmute yourself and share with us.
Stacy, I have to share from last night, and I have to thank you because I had another sourdough event last night for one of my partners, and there were 6 people there, and we had talked about it before, and it was funny because how often do we say, I don't want to be pushy, right? You were talking about our mindset. And so I was talking to her about how I was going to do things differently, and I have started doing what you do is, just kind of introduce yourself, then make the dough, and then go back and go into kind of your presentation part. And I said, there's been some people here that had some questions, so we're going to just pass out the order forms now. So out of 6 people, we had 4 orders. And the shift was doing something different, right? And getting through that mindset, I had to talk to my partner and say, we're not going to be pushy. We're just going to want to share and help people. And it was just like they were super excited to get orders going. So that was my shift. And it really made a difference on changing my mindset and doing something different.
And the shift in your mindset shifted the activity, right? A lot of times we pivot somewhere and it changes multiple areas of this, especially mindset. That will affect your activity. That will affect your skill set of she changed how she did the presentation, but then also actually passing out the order forms and changed the marketing. Like a lot of times work on the mindset and the rest will fall in place. Excellent example, Patty. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, this was a while ago. I wouldn't have any functions at my house just because the way my house is. Let's just say that. It's old and it's dated. And I had a friend say to somebody that, oh, my house was awful. It's like, what? And so I wouldn't do it. And then Alita came over and she said, no, this is fine. You could have an event, and I did. And I got new customers. And I've had a few events since then, not just sour parties, but sourdoughs. And I haven't had sourdough at my house because my house is very small. And you kind of need room, but I could probably have 6 people. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that. I don't know when, but I'm going to get that in. I'm going to try to do that. What is it? 10 and 120 or whatever.
Yes.
And that was huge because then after I had that first one, then I was comfortable to have more, so it was huge.
And isn't that true, Nancy? Like one person can say something and they shift our mindset. They pivot it from the negative of your house isn't great to Alita saying, your house is great. Don't worry about them, right? But yet that negative comment, how much we have to really work to get that, like, sit down. Like you don't get a place in this table. We're not talking to you. We're not listening to you. But man, you have to have, like, I forget what the statistic is, like 8 positive comments to take out that negative one. But that was something that you made that pivot and it changes everything. And you know what? I think it's great to only have space for 6 because then there's like FOMO. I have, like, we have 6 spots. And people, and if you want one of the spot, you got to pay the $25 and to reserve it. And people are like, I don't want to be left out. I want to be one of the 6. And then you just start building a wait list and you keep doing them. So most of the supplies with like jars and towels and stuff are sold in 12s or 24. So that's why I try to stick to 12. So halving it and 6 is great because you buy the supplies. If you buy 24, you've got that many classes that you can do. So I think 6 is fine. You get really good connections with them. And I just don't think you have to do 18 or 50 at some place, right? Like 6 is great. 1 is great for a one-on-one, but for sourdough, I think 6 is an excellent number. So thank you, Nancy. Lisa?
It's, I was going to say, kind of going off what you said and also what Nancy just said. So, a couple of things. It's funny because tonight I'm supposed to speak at our team meeting just for a few minutes, but when Travis talked about friction, that really came up, and that was kind of what I was going to talk about, and it kind of goes along with the obstacles. So what are your reactions and all of that? And a couple of things that you said some things today that are like, oh boy, that hit me in the heart again. But I'm listening to Atomic Habits again, and just recently, and the people I've been talking to about weight loss and just changing what they're doing, I'm like, one of the first questions I start asking people is, who do you say you are? Who do you think you are? And this woman said, are you trying to sell me something? I said, no, I'm trying to help you, but I can't help you unless I know who you keep telling yourself you are. Because that's why you can't lose weight, or that's why you can't build your business or whatever, is because, and I'm the same. I'm constantly trying to remember what my mindset is. And one of the things I've done is in my planner, during the week, I'll write down in pink, like things I want to tell myself. Who am I? Who am I in Christ? Because until your mindset changes, and you have to constantly, in my opinion, and I've been working on it forever, but until you keep changing that and remembering who you are and who you're growing to be, you can't make your business work. You can't pivot until that's part of the pivot is who am I? So, and making that commitment, I'm going to do that every day. When I stumble, and it's when I stumble, I'm going to do it again. It's not if I do. We all know we get distracted. Like this woman this morning said, oh, I got distracted. That's all of us. And like you said, there's so much. And one of the things you said earlier was just tracking your DMO. It's funny that you said that because it was something I wrote down. There's some people that keep coming into my mind, and I'm like, I need to go back to them. I talked to them 3 weeks ago. So there's lots of things. First of all, I feel like it's the mindset. And then if you're not tracking, you can't move forward with that. So there's just so many pieces. Pick one or two and utilize them is what I'm doing right now.
Right. What's the obstacle that's most negatively impacting? Start with that one. And maybe you need somebody to talk it through with. What is the obstacle? Like, I feel like it's all these obstacles, and maybe it just kind of, they all narrow down to one, and then you can start really focusing on that one. But if you don't have the discussion, like you said, Lisa, if we're not real with ourselves, if we're not thinking a little bit deeper, how do you begin to adjust? How do you pivot if you don't know what the obstacle is? So that's a great reminder. Anyone else want to share?
Good morning. I would love to share. This has just been so good. I always love these Zooms with that you do. Well, I just wanted to share what Nancy was sharing about how she was saying that her house is dated, and she was nervous about having events there. And Nancy, I just want to encourage you and anyone else who's listening, if some people love dated homes, right? I mean, just because it's not new and the new fad and everything, some people love that. And so who knows who's going to come in and absolutely love your home. The other thing is it's duplicatable what you're doing. You're going to have people come over and go, you know what, my home's not perfect either, but I can do this. Look at Nancy's doing this. I can do this too. So I just want to encourage you with that, just to remember that, you don't have to be perfect. If you're perfect, it's going to be so much harder to get other people to want to do what we're doing. So anyways, thanks you guys. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Let's get things going. Let's get on the phone. Let's start inviting for these wonderful events that we can have.
Excellent. So much goodness right there. Thank you, Tiffany. Anyone else? Yeah. So perfection may be what we think we're after, but it's not what attracts other people. So just be yourselves. Be yourselves. Find out what that obstacle is. Look at where you can pivot and shift, and let's keep moving forward. So hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you next Monday.